For nearly 2 millennia, his name has echoed like thunder, cleaving through the sky of Chinese history. He was the one who ended the chaotic warring stage period, unified the land, and gave birth to the magnificent empire we know today. But he was also the one who burned knowledge, buried scholars alive, and built colossal structures with the blood and tears of millions. He is hailed as a military genius, a daring reformer, yet cursed as a brutal tyrant, a madman obsessed with power and immortality. So, who was Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China really? An outstanding hero who shaped Eastern civilization, or a bloodthirsty villain who sowed terror? Today, we open the case file on Qin Shi Huang, not to judge, but to gain a deeper understanding. We will trace the footsteps of a life full of mysteries, from a discarded prince to the unifier of the land, from the builder of the Great Wall to a man haunted by death. Can we separate legend from truth to see the real man behind the mask of ultimate power? Prepare yourself, because this story will challenge everything you thought you knew about Qin Shi Huang. Case file number 1: The discarded child and the highest ambition. To understand Qin Shi Huang, we must rewind over 2,200 years to an era Chinese history calls the Warring States period. Imagine a miniature map of ancient China, not as a unified nation, but as a land torn apart by 7 powerful kingdoms: Qin, Zhou, Ji, Yan, Han, Zhao, Wei, constantly clashing, vying for every inch of land, every drop of blood. In that unceasing crucible war, Qin, located in the west, was once considered a barbarian kingdom with cruel culture, but an incredibly fierce and disciplined army. And it was here, in 259 BCE, that a child was born, whose destiny would forever change the course of history. That child's name was Xing Chen. But Xing Chen's identity was a mystery from birth, a huge question that forever haunted him and history itself. His mother was Lady Zhao, a concubine of Prince Zichu. According to some legendary records, she was once a courtesan of Lu Buwei, an ambitious merchant who used his talent and wealth to manipulate the Qin court. Lu Buwei offered Lady Zhao to Zichu, a Qin's prince, held hostage in the state of Zhao. 3 months later, Lady Zhao became pregnant with Xing Chen. Therefore, some anecdote raised the question: was Xing Chen the son of Zichu, the future king of Jin, or the flesh and blood of Lu Buwei? This uncertainty of parentage, whether anecdotal or real, sowed the seeds of deep insecurity in Xing Chen's soul. He lived as the hostage in Zhao, growing up in fear, enduring contempt, and nearly dying many times during the wars between Jin and Zhao. This harsh childhood forged an iron will, a burning desire for power, and a deep distrust of everyone. He learned that to survive, to win, he had to be stronger than all, trusting no one. At the age of 13, after many political upheavals and Lu Buwei machinations, Xing Chen officially ascended to the thrones as King of Jin. But at this time, real power lay in the hands of Prime Minister Lu Buwei, who controlled all court affairs. Xing Chen, a young king, was merely a pawn on someone else's chessboard, a child who grew up in fear and doubted his own identity, now subjected to the control of another powerful figure. But the fire of ambition in Xing Chen's heart never extinguished. He observed, learned, and waited for his moment. Like a young tiger stalking its prey, he silently sharpened his claws. The ambition to unify the land was cultivated within him early on, not just for power, but for something deeper: the end of all chaos, the establishment of a new order, where no one would have to endure what he had. In 238 BCE, at the age of 22, Xingchen officially took personal control of the government. He proved he was not as easily manipulated king. His first and most shocking decision was to execute Lu Buwei, who was once his benefactor and manipulator. This event sent a chilling message to the entire court and the vassal states. Xingchen would not tolerate any force that threatened his absolute power. A new era had begun, an era that this young king would determine the destiny of an entire civilization. Case file number 2: The Game of Kings and the Secret of Unification. With power firmly in his hands, King Chen of Qin began to realize his greatest ambition: to unify all under heaven. 6 other powerful nations stood at colossal obstacles. How could one kingdom, no matter how formidable, swallow all these mighty foes? This was not merely a war of swords and spears, but a grand game of wits, strategy, and ruthlessness. Xingchen not only possessed a disciplined army, but also brilliant strategists like Li Si, who proposed to ally with distant states, attack nearby one's strategy. According to many historians, the Qin army was also famous for using spies to sow discord within enemy states, bringing officials and spreading rumors to weaken their will to fight. He created an unbelievably effective war and intelligent machine. Qin Shi Huang's path to unification was a trial by fire. In 230 BCE, he struck at Han, the smallest kingdom, showing that no one could stand in his way. 2 years later, he faced Zhao, the land that had haunted his childhood fears. With cunning and resolve, he manipulated events so that Zhao's greatest general, Li Mu, was executed, and the state fell. Wei tried to resist, but Qin Shi Huang's strategies, even bending rivers, crushed the city of Dalian. Zhu, the largest kingdom, tested his patience and skill, yet he persevered, leading his army to victory with unwavering determination. In 222 BCE, Qin took its revenge on Yan for an earlier assassination attempt, crushing its armies and seizing its territory. Finally, in 221 BCE, the armies of Qin marched on Qi, the last remaining kingdom. Having avoided conflict for decades, the king of Qi surrendered without a fight. After 10 years of relentless campaigning, Qin Shi Huang had done what no rulers before him could. All under heaven bowed to his command, and the first emperor of a unified China was born. He proclaimed himself Shi Huangdi, the first emperor, laying the foundation for a Chinese empire that would last for over 2,000 years. This was an unprecedented title, reflecting his immense self-esteem and boundless ambition. Qin Shi Huang knew that winning the wars was only the beginning. To hold this empire together, he reshaped the world itself. He made the money, the ways, and the written characters the same everywhere, so trade and communication could flow freely. Roads and canals stretched across the land, linking distant provinces under his rule. He replaced feudal lords with appointed officials, bringing every corner of the empire under his authority. With each reform, Qin Shi Huang wasn't just ruling, he was reshaping the world he had conquered. These reforms shows that Qin Shi Huang was not only a great warrior, but also an organizer, an architect of a nation. He laid the foundation for China's administrative and social structure for millennia. But what was the downside of this unification? Case file number 3. The shadow of power and the obsessions with immortality. The unification of the land brought Qin Shi Huang absolute power, but it also pushed him into an abyss of loneliness and obsession. An emperor who had witnessed the fall of 6 kingdoms, who had defeated every enemy, now faced an enemy greater than all, death. From a young man threatened by death, he became the one with the power to challenge it. Qin Shi Huang's ambition for immortality was not a random madness, but the culmination of a life full of anxiety and a craving for control. Imagine his later years. He lived in constant fear of assassination. He escaped at least 3 major assassination attempts, the most famous being Jin Ke's attempt. These experiences turned him into an extreme paranoiac, trusting no one, not even his closest confidants. He even built a complex system of underground tunnels beneath his palace to move secretly, avoiding surveillance. This very obsession led to his most brutal acts, burning books and burying scholars in 213 BCE. And 212 BCE was one of the biggest stains on Qin Shi Huang's history. Confucian scholars often criticize his policies, citing ancient classics to speak of previous golden ages. To suppress all dissenting thought and unify ideology, Qin Shi Huang ordered the burning of all books not related to law, medicine, agriculture, and divination. According to Sima Qian's records of the Grand Historian, many scholars was executed, including being buried alive, a brutal act aimed at eradicating intellectual resistance. This act destroyed countless precious cultural legacies and left a scar in the hearts of later generations. But alongside these violent acts, Qin Shi Huang was also obsessed with finding immortality. He sent Taoist alchemists and even dispatched thousands of people to the Eastern Sea to search for elixirs of life. He believed that somehow he could defy the laws of nature, live forever to rule the empire he had created. And when he could not find immortality, he tried to build another world for himself. That was the mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang, the greatest and most mysterious construction in history. Imagine an underground city, a miniature universe built to serve the emperor in the afterlife. The mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang and the Terracotta Army were not just a tomb, but a miniature empire. According to archaeologists and legendary records, inside the mausoleum, there is believed to be an ancient map of China with rivers made of mercury, stars made of jewels, and a colossal terracotta army with thousands of soldiers, horses, and chariots, each statue with distinct facial features and equipment. What was the purpose of this army? To protect the emperor from enemy in the afterlife, or to continue ruling an eternal empire? To this day, we have only explored a small part of this mausoleum, and it remains one of the greatest archaeological mysteries in the world. It is a testament to the greatness, the madness, and the ultimate fear of death that Qin Shi Huang's harbor. In 210 BCE, while on his last imperial tour in search of the elixirs of immortality, Qin Shi Huang died at the age of 49. His death was mysterious, and the court tried to conceal the information to avoid chaos. But immediately after his death, the magnificent empire he had meticulously built began to collapse. Rebellions broke out everywhere, and just 4 years later, the Qin dynasty was overthrown. Qin Shi Huang was a character full of paradoxes, a man of extremes. He was the one who ended centuries of turmoils, bringing unity and peace. He was the reformer who laid the foundation for a great empire, with a unified administrative system, currency, ways and measures, and writing. He was the one who left behind magnificent architectural wonders like the Great Wall and the Mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang, enduring symbols of human power and will. But he was also the one who destroyed knowledge, suppressed thought, and sowed terror with his brutality. He was the embodiment of absolute power, but also a victim of that very power, living in utterly loneliness and obsession. Qin Shi Huang's legacy is a complex indictment, not to be summarized in the simple good or evil. He shattered an old world to build a new one, and the price paid for that creation was incredibly high. The story of Qin Shi Huang challenges us to think about the nature of power, the cost of unification, and the thin line between genius and madness. After hearing the story, what do you think of Qin Shi Huang? Was he nothing more than a tyrant, or a great reformer misunderstood by history? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for joining me in the alley today on this journey to explore the mysterious history. Don't forget to subscribe to uncover more fascinating stories together. Bye.